grieving. Some families will be lost to one another forever. To those of you who face the difficulties of reconnecting with family and establishing ongoing relationships, we say sorry. We offer this apology in the hope that it will assist your healing and in order to shine a light on a dark period of our nation's history. To those who have fought for the truth to be heard, we hear you now.
You're listening to Adopt Perspective, a podcast for anyone affected by adoption. I'm one of your hosts, Jo Sparrow. This podcast is a production of Jigsaw Queensland Post-Adoption Support Service. However, the views expressed are those of the people participating, not necessarily Jigsaw Queensland. The podcast discusses adult themes and listener discretion is advised.
This is Jane, and today I will be speaking to Kath Mundy and Jay Turner, known together as Mundy Turner. They are a singer-songwriting duo. In late 2019, Jigsaw Queensland approached Jay and Kath about the possibility of them meeting with individuals affected by forced adoption for the purpose of writing a song to represent this experience. The idea was for the song to be performed at the 2020 7th anniversary of the National Apology for Past Forced Adoption Practices in Australia. Jay and Kath had previously engaged in a similar process with forgotten Australians and former child migrants. When I attended a 2019 Remembrance Day event for that group, I heard this song performed by Kath and Jay, along with a choir, which included individuals who were forgotten Australians and former child migrants. It was an extremely moving and absolutely beautiful performance. Let's have a listen to the song, Have You Forgotten Me?
Taken by the government, hidden from view, innocence stolen from all but the few, parted from our families, all trace of love denied, the tyranny of strangers, no matter how we cried. Have you forgotten me? Have you forgotten me? Have you forgotten me?
After hearing this beautiful song and approaching Kath and Jay, they went away and researched forced adoption before agreeing to participate in a new songwriting process with Jigsaw and with our client and stakeholder groups. Welcome to the podcast, Kath and Jay.
Hello. Thank you, Jane. Good to be here.
It is. It's very good to see. So, Kath and Jay, before we get into talking about the songwriting process in relation to forced adoption, I'm wondering if you can tell us a little more about your background and how you came to be involved in this type of work.
Sure. We were both performers in our separate rights. I was a solo performer. Catherine was in a trio of a cappella singers, but we were both songwriters. So when we got together, that was the process that we carried on with. Writing,
original songwriting and performance.
And performing together, which we did for about, 12 years or something like that before we had a child, and we actually had to stop touring and performing.
Well, we didn't stop performing completely, but we did have to stop international touring. That was really, So at that point we were living in the UK when our son was born, and we moved back to Australia with a whole new life ahead of us. What it was going to be, we didn't know because we thought, we're touring artists, what are we going to do? We were we would put off having a child for that, because of that very question. We couldn't answer it. So in the end we just went, we can't answer this question, we just have to do it and let let things just unfold.
Wow.
The answer was that you actually can't do it. So that was. But Kath had always wanted to. She'd harboured this wish to conduct choirs, and she'd never really had a chance to do that.
We'd always been. We'd loved running workshops with people. So if we'd go to a festival to perform, we'd often run a vocal workshop, and we'd get 70 people come along, and we'd teach them to sing harmonies, and then they'd get on stage with us, and we just always loved involving people in singing with us. So I said, I really want to start a community choir where we're now living. That's how we'll get to know our community and how our community will get to know us.
Yep.
And we're living down in Logan at this point, and we still are in the same house. So we started a community choir called Freedom Train.
So we did that, and through that, I mean, one of the first few performances we did was, in fact, we were invited to participate in the Forgotten Australians and Former Child Migrants anniversary
National Apology.
Of the National Apology. And as a result of that, some of those actually joined the choir, which was just amazing.
People joined the choir.
But of course, then we got to know them. We got to know their stories. One of our choir members, Mick Davis, he's an extraordinary man in his own right. He actually wrote a poem about some of the experiences that those folks had that he'd heard about through their the contact with them. And he came to me and he said, do you think that you could make this into a song? And I said, well, I think I can use it as an inspiration for a song. So we springboarded a song off of that, and the next year Kath and I went along and we performed it at the next anniversary.
So the first time we had ever heard of a national apology to Forgotten Australians and Former Child Migrants was when we were invited to perform at their 5th anniversary event. So this was organised by Lotus Place, Micah Projects, and we had no idea. This was the start of our education because we did not know anything about. We knew the Stolen Generation apology, but we didn't know about this apology. Yeah. And I was quite amazed and
most people think that they're actually the same thing.
They think it's the same thing.
It's Stolen Generation. So it was really an education to actually hear about a totally separate set of people who had been disadvantaged in this way, and then the government had actually recognised that, not of its own accord. It had been,
tireless decades of advocacy by the affected people. Yeah. So we were blown away, absolutely blown away by this. And then, of course, we wrote the song based off springboarded from the lovely Mick, his poem. And at the 6th anniversary event, we were invited back, and the poem was performed. And we performed the song in a very raw form because it had only just been finished.
In fact, I actually finished it that evening because you're probably aware of this yourself, but when people have been in situations where they've not had control over their lives, quite often they have an attitude about people telling them what they should do or telling them how what they should say.
Rightfully
and I was very aware of this. And one of the sections of the song, and there's a midsection to the song, and I had 2 different versions of that midsection. And I went up to one of the ladies who I knew was the most vocal of that group about her rights and about people's attitudes and how people approached them. And I said to her, "Look, I've got these 2." Different versions of the thing, and I said, I'll show you both of them. Tell me which one you think is the most apt. And I said, one of them's more confronting than the other, and she said, yeah, that's the one.
Yeah.
She wanted the more confronting one. Yeah. I think because she wanted the truth to be told and no holds barred.
So I became really aware through that process that not only do these folks want their story to be heard, they want a voice, but not only that, you have to be pinpoint accurate about the historical nature of it and also about how they actually feel. You've got to represent them, and that's a really big responsibility.
It's a huge responsibility. So we felt very nervous when we first were singing it for them, but we were really just so grateful that they were very honest in their feedback, and that on the whole they loved it. It was just a couple of little tweaky moments. So with that feedback, we then performed it for the very first time at the 6th anniversary, and then the 7th anniversary we went back with a music video of the song, launched at that event, and then we performed it with the With One Voice Brisbane Choir and the Lotus Place Voices on stage together. And then for the encore, we actually invited anyone from the audience to just come up and join us. And so there's two videos. There's one of the first version and then the encore version where just about everyone was on stage. There was no one in the audience.
And I think that's the event I was at, if I remember correctly. And it was just brilliant. And Trevor and I were there, and sort of just were like, we need to get on board with this as well, which kind of links into my next question, because you've mentioned that issue of government apologies, and I'm wondering what your initial reaction was when we did contact you to be involved in a songwriting process about forced adoption, because I know you then went away and researched forced adoption.
Yeah, because yet again, another government apology.
We couldn't believe it.
Absolutely no knowledge of.
I didn't know about this one. I was just amazed. I went, how many apologies has this government had to make?
We're looking at making an album,
The apology album.
The apology album.
We're sorry.
But we went away and researched it, and actually the Julia Gillard, I think, apology, I thought was absolutely beautiful.
Oh, it made me cry.
She really nailed it. And,
me too. I agree.
It's one of the great moments in Australian politics, I think, and so we were very happy with the idea of getting involved. I think that we probably thought that it was going to be, this is going to be similar to the Forgotten Australians project, and we've already got experience in that, so we can do this, so that was kind of our approach to it.
But it was a different process.
It was
much more structured and less organic for a start, because we weren't commissioned to write that song. We were commissioned to make a music video of it, but that song actually just came out as an offer.
Yeah.
Oh, Mick's written a poem. He's wondering if we could write a song. Oh yeah, let's write a song. Oh, here it is.
Yeah.
What do you think? Oh yeah, we like it.
So this was going to be slightly.
This was much more.
Yeah,
we're
asking
you, and this is going to be formal, and we're going to sit down in a formal room with people with the lived experience of either losing their children to forced adoption or being those children.
Exactly.
And that was different.
Yeah, it's definitely different. And we relished the idea of the responsibility of it. We felt
it was terrifying, actually, but also, good to get your teeth into.
I think because we'd had previous experience with the other apology and the song that we came. I felt that I got enough experience to be able to do something that was evolved and that was sensitive and that could hopefully work to the remit that was actually totally separate. It was actually a totally separate remit to the ones for the Forgotten Australians.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was lucky enough to be in that in the two workshops that we had. I think we had one, and then you went away,
follow-up,
and then follow-up. So in that first workshop, I just wondered if you could just tell us a little bit about what that was like to sit in that room and hear those stories.
Yeah, it was scary. I'm going to be honest, because I really wanted people to feel comfortable to share their stories honestly with us, who were two strangers. So I'm like, oh gosh, how is this going to work? We're not sure until we're in the room. So I'd written out a plan and activities, but I also knew that we were going to have to go with the flow with whatever happened. and I didn't know whether people would open up to us.
Yeah.
In fact, in the event, they were very forthcoming.
They did.
Very, very trusting. I mean, we did a few sort of exercises to basically... They're drama exercises, really, but they're more aimed at getting people in the room.
Yeah.
You know, to enrol them into the whole process. But once they were enrolled, they were amazingly forthcoming and very brave. And
the stories just started to flow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember one of the exercises was to sort of like a show and tell with a part of your body, which sounds a bit weird, but this is my earlobe.
Yeah.
And I had this earlobe pierced when I was 7 years old, and I remember that I was really scared when I saw the needle, and I wanted to change my mind, but I decided I'd still go ahead with it. So it's little stories like that come out of something simple like here's my earlobe.
Yeah.
And I couldn't believe it, the stories that came out about hair.
I know.
Hair was a really interesting one. So that brought out other people's stories. So when one person heard one other story, they'd go, "Oh, I have an experience that reminds me of that."
It became really organic.
Very organic.
And the whole thing flowed. And I was sitting there with my pad, trying to write down phrases and that sort of thing. And as soon as I saw this happening, I thought, right, I've got to get at this. And I was literally writing non-stop, trying to engage with people, but at the same time getting down.
So I was sort of doing more the engagement, and Jay was like scribing.
Because I knew that here was the
gold.
Here was the meat in the sandwich.
Yes.
It was the real core of what we were getting was people's honest stories, people's honest emotions about those stories.
It was very emotional, and we felt incredibly privileged to be trusted with those stories.
And I have to say you both did a very good job because you both shared a couple of little snippets of things from your life that I think helped people, even though they weren't necessarily direct adoption experiences. They were along those themes of loss, which everybody, most people have. And I think that was powerful. There's so much I want to say in response to what you've just said, but another point I'll just pick up on, because actually just in our previous podcast episode, Jo interviewed an author who's an adopted person about a book she's written which includes her personal story but also healing. And one of the points she makes, it's called 10 Foundations of a Meaningful Life. And one point she makes is about you can only heal in direct experience, not when you're sort of in your head thinking about the past, thinking about the future. So I think being in that room, that's exactly why it was so powerful, both in the songwriting workshop and in the rehearsals, which we'll get to in a minute. I think people were in the moment, connecting.
For me, it actually felt like that workshop was a part of their healing process, and it was amazing to be part of it. It was very emotional. I felt very affected by it. In fact, I don't think I really got over that particular workshop.
I'm feeling emotional talking about it now
because
it's over a year ago now.
That's right.
It was because the people's stories were so powerful. But what also came across was that forced adoption has so many facets, and it has so many almost conflicting responses from people
potentially,
who not only those who were forced into adopting, sending their children away, the children who were sent away, the people whose families were around them, how they were affected, where the child went, the adopted family or the adopting family, and there were just so many facets to it.
So many layers and levels and angles. There were so many different perspectives, and that formed the biggest challenge.
I know, and that's my next question is, how did you go about writing the song, writing the lyrics? Because after we walked out of that workshop, I felt a bit bad for you. I thought, I don't know how
this is
they're going to pull all of this into a song. So I'm wondering...
I think what I did was I went away with all the things that I'd written down, and I just started to put them together and try and put them in a lyrical way. And I started, I just pick up the guitar and sort of start playing away and see if I can come up with some melodic ideas. And if you've got the melodic idea, then you've got to get all the scansion right for all the words. And I think that, in fact, that mostly within the first day, I had put together all of the verses, and I put together the idea of the chorus. But then I started to realise that a chorus is something that actually is the soul of the song. It's where everybody meets. It's that place where everybody agrees. It's something that they can recognise, that they can carry with them as a trigger for the other stories. The stories are great, but you need the chorus to actually break it up. When I came to the chorus, I just sort of went, well, how am I going to get a chorus that is going to represent so many points of view? The only way you can do that is to make it more generic. But if you make it generic, then you start to get into the realm of vague, and you couldn't do that. So the chorus was actually more of a challenge than anything else.
That was the hardest part. We reworked the chorus so many times.
I think I actually went through 19 drafts of that, and you guys were so helpful because I was actually...
In January a year ago, we were sending you drafts,
that's right,
and you guys were coming back with your feedback, which was totally invaluable. And then we would just keep working and working and working, and sleepless nights.
Oh my goodness!
but that, when you're writing a song. I mean, unless it comes to you just like that, and some songs come in 20 minutes, and that's fantastic. Some just take work, and you don't stop working on it mentally. So, your mental process is going on whilst you're conscious. Then you go to sleep.
Still there.
It's still there. And you wake up, hopefully, with a result.
We were taking it into
not.
our social situations even, because we've got some friends who were adopted. And so I said, look, would you give us your opinion? Can we play this song to you? And I'd play them a recording of what we had, and that she'd go, maybe not that, and maybe this. And so it was difficult, because I thought, how are we going to settle on something that will represent every different point of view as well as possible?
And I remember the first time I heard it, I thought you'd done an amazing job, because, as you say, I think it was the verses that captured different perspectives. But my first feeling was there was the word broken in there.
Yes.
That's right.
And I just, more from a professional angle than a personal one, I thought, no, we can't have something that's going to leave people with that feeling.
Yeah.
So then we came back to you with that.
Yeah.
And the word was then changed to a few different words.
That's right, it did.
We tried a few different other words.
Being in that room with those people telling their stories, every one of them said to me, in one way or another, that at a certain point in my life I have been broken by this.
Yeah.
So I thought, okay, that's a shared experience.
And the trust had been broken.
The problem,
so much had been broken.
That's right. The problem with that is that then, if you use that word, that becomes then a representative of the situation they're in now, which wasn't necessarily the truth, which was the feedback that you gave us, which was just, again, it was just
and if
so
it had been
important.
used as an adjective in one of the verses to describe something, but because it was in the chorus,
I think
and it just felt like it was thematic, and it was the wrong direction for the theme.
You want to be positive. You don't want that. Yes, you're dealing with a subject matter that is immensely deep and sometimes very, very sad, often heartbreaking. At the same time, you don't want the song to be the outcome of it to everybody who listens to it wants to go away and finish themselves off. So the idea is to try to generate some hope within the situation that they're on a journey of healing, and that at some point or another
that we all are on a journey of healing,
which we all are.
All humans have have aspects that we all
of that
need to
feedback
heal.
was just absolutely great. But as I say, I think I did 19 drafts of the chorus. But I couldn't. There was a certain point where I couldn't let it go. I had to get it right.
Determined.
Which is a great quality. And it's interesting you mentioned the word hope, because I think that's something that came up, that we're all saying we want it to capture the pain, but we also want there to be hope. So
Yes.
in the end,
Hoping was the word.
The word was hoping.
Yeah.
So broken was replaced with
Yeah.
hoping, which I just
Which we're
love.
all doing as well.
I
you know,
love it. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. And it was beautiful to sing it.
Yes.
Beautiful to
Felt.
sing that word.
Yeah.
It wasn't mincing the issue. It
No.
wasn't trying to shy away from the truth of the issue.
Exactly.
Because we do all hold hope. And I think
Yeah.
we must hold hope.
Exactly.
But the important thing about the whole process is that people want to be heard. They want to have a voice, especially when they've been disadvantaged in this way so deeply. And it was important that they had a voice at the same time giving their story, but at the same time saying, this hasn't defeated me,
Exactly.
you know.
And again, the words you've just used now are also reflected in the song, because the theme of having a voice, that's in there as well.
Yeah.
One of the last phrases is about, I think, it's been a while since I listened to it.
Love has a voice.
And I'll keep
That is silence
speaking.
no more.
I'll keep
Yeah.
hoping. I'll keep
speaking.
Yeah, I'll keep asking, I'll keep searching, I'll keep speaking.
Yeah. So,
And the last word of
Really
the song
counts.
is, I'll keep speaking.
which I love.
Yeah, and that was deliberate because
Yeah.
That came out of the second workshop.
So yeah,
You talked
basically
about-
January 2020, so a year
Yep.
ago, that was when you came back. So we, some of us at Jigsaw, including myself, we'd given you our bit of feedback. I think by that point, hoping was in there.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you then presented that to the original workshop participants.
Yes.
And as you say, that did lead to some more tweaks. But how was that experience for you presenting the song?
Again, it was scary.
Yeah.
Because now we had to show, you know, it was our turn to show and tell.
Yeah.
we had to.
This is my baby, please don't call it a monkey.
It was our baby, but it was their baby.
Yeah.
So, you know, really, really difficult. What if they hated it? That was our biggest fear.
Yeah.
What if they hated it? But
They were very kind.
they were so lovely, and we just had a few little
Yeah.
tweaks. I think there was just a couple of little massaging
Yeah.
of a perspective on one
Yeah.
line, and then the adding of the "I'll keep speaking" at the end.
Yeah.
We did already have that line, but the repetition of it
Yeah.
was something we decided on as a group, which
Yeah.
was so lovely. I just
So
love that
powerful,
process.
because I think we talked about with speaking, that's again bringing back to the theme, that's how we got an apology, was people speaking.
Yeah, exactly.
And not
and it
stopping.
was the same.
Yeah.
Never
it was
being
the same
silent.
for Forgotten Australians.
Exactly.
They had to keep speaking their truth
Yes.
until somebody was forced to listen.
Exactly.
And then once
Yeah.
one apology happened, I think the first one was
was the Indigenous stolen generation.
yes. So once one apology had happened, there's a precedent, isn't there?
Exactly.
And you
Yeah.
just have to keep pushing towards
That's
that
right.
until you get the result. And of course, it doesn't end with a national
Yeah.
apology.
That's right.
just the beginning.
Exactly. And then it's continuing to speak and remind people.
Sure.
Exactly.
And the song is one way, I guess. Of
That's right.
doing
Doing
that.
projects like this
Yeah.
helps
Well, that was-
to continue
Yeah.
the healing journey.
That was the hope, was that it would be something that people could feel they could take ownership of.
Yeah.
And also something that you could hang other events around, so that you could say, okay, we've got this song. Now we can move forward with it. We can use it to inform people. We can use it to entertain people. We can use it every time we meet.
Exactly.
We can play this song
To bring
That's
us
our
together
song.
as a
Brings
touch
us-
point.
Yeah.
So
Because
it's
the
got a
power
number
of
different
music
Yes.
to help us unlock emotions, to release,
Yeah.
and to share our experiences.
And as you say, to educate as well, because you could talk all day about the issue, but someone could listen to a song and they could maybe even feel.
They'll feel it.
The
They'll
issue.
feel the
Yeah.
issue rather
Yeah.
than think the issue.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
that's more powerful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely.
And people that have no experience with adoption could hear it and take something away, I think.
This is that's what you hope for.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
So in that second workshop, somebody said, well, do you guys want some backup singers when you perform this at the event? So that was really beautiful, I thought, and we ran with that idea. And that's sort of what happened. We then had 2 or 3 rehearsals in the lead up to the event. And unfortunately then COVID came in at the very last minute, and we'd had about 70 people who had registered to come to the event and were going to hear the song, and I think we had more RSVPs than we'd ever had before. And then, unfortunately, government restrictions started to come in. It was really the beginning of COVID. So the event went ahead, but we had about 30 in the end. It was absolutely bizarre to walk into the room that morning and see all the chairs 1.5
I know, that was the beginning of all the new normal.
Yeah.
It was so weird.
Yeah. So, it didn't go exactly as planned, and we had hoped the song would reach more people. So this is why I'm very happy to be talking about it on the podcast today, because we know we've got listeners all over the world.
Oh, wow.
And also very, very happy that, circumstances permitting, we will be having another performance of the song this year.
I look forward to that.
Yeah, so, at the end, before we finish, I'll give some details about that, but I just thought I'd hand over to you again and say, what was that like for you? Again, I was very lucky to be in that group, practicing and performing the song, and I found it healing. I found it empowering. But how do you... I think you did help everyone to feel very comfortable in that process, and I think you talked a bit already about how you do that, but what was that experience like for you in this instance?
So bringing people into the rehearsal of the song, because not everybody necessarily had any experience at singing in front of others or singing at all, maybe. Yeah. And we wanted to include everyone who wanted to be part of it. So
I think this is part of because we've got a lot of experience with choirs,
community choirs,
inclusivity. Yeah. This is where I think Catherine, she excels in many things, but making people feel that they have a voice and they have the right to use it to express themselves, and having people in a group where it's a little bit safer. Yeah. I think that she's absolutely fantastic at that. So I didn't sort of approach that part of it with any kind of qualms at all. I just thought Kath will do her thing.
Yeah, and she did.
And people were so willing to sing, and that was the other lovely thing. When you talk about that moment when somebody at the second songwriting workshop said, do you need backup singers to perform this with you? That was a great moment, because for me that meant they've taken ownership. They want to sing this song. They want to give voice to this. And I think the very act of giving voice to the song is a powerful moment. Yes. And for us as songwriters, wow, thank you. Yes. Thank you. You're telling us that this is your song. It's not our song anymore, and that the handover had happened. And that's what we wanted.
That was exactly that moment. I remember it because I think it was Vivian.
We're in the room where it happened.
Because we had originally hoped to form a choir, but then there hadn't been many expressions of interest, enough people to make a choir.
That's right.
But with this group being a backing choir and us Jay and I doing the main work of it, that took the pressure off them, because we didn't have many rehearsals either.
And I think, again, it was being in the room with the other people and feeling comfortable with you two that they felt they could do that.
Yeah.
Whereas when they just saw it on a flyer, join a choir. Whoa.
Yeah, that sounds out there.
That's a big deal. That's pretty scary.
Yeah.
But it was actually the organic process.
We were there to lift and support their experience, because we're professionals. We're used to being out there in front of an audience, and they could feel safe being part of it.
It was the perfect solution to our dilemma of being able to include people in the performance. So it actually was, it was
you
there
didn't
for
have
us.
to be. You didn't have to be a strong, confident singer. You could just come in and be part of something. And I think that was really beneficial.
And one thing I remember actually you sharing at some point anyway was your thoughts about, I guess, what happens when you're in a group of singers. I'm struggling to put words to it, but it felt... You feel part of something. So it's not just taking ownership of the song and giving voice to it, but it's something that happens between the participants that you feel...
Yes. Yes.
What would you say about that?
Well, there are some scientific explanations for what happens. Our hearts actually start to synchronize their beats to the rhythm of what we're doing, because we're breathing together and we're singing the phrases at the same time. So there's this actual synchronization that happens to our bodies on a physiological level.
Yeah.
And then there's the release of the chemicals, the feel-good chemicals that happen when we sing.
Yeah.
So we get all those feel-good chemicals going around our body, the oxytocin and everything, and that helps us to feel connected to each other. And it gives you a high. It really does. Singing is my drug.
Yeah.
And singing with other people increases that because you get that connection with others.
It's a really, really good team building tool.
But because it was a community of people affected by adoption, it's not only what you're saying, it's we've already shared. We're in this together.
That's right. This sort of cements it on a chemical level.
Yes.
I think too that there was some, I don't know how many of those folks knew each other very much. Not so much, but they did.
Yeah.
They started to form friendships.
Absolutely.
And maybe, I don't know.
Well, they'd all listen to each other.
But you'd like to think that they were able to support each other in other situations, and maybe they have and maybe they haven't. But the possibility was there. You could definitely see people were going off to lunch together. They were going off at the end of the process.
There were conversations happening.
So again, that even if you've only put two people together who can phone each other and say, "Hey, I'm having a really bad day. Do you want to have a coffee?"
Exactly, that's huge.
That's huge. You put people together, and you could maybe have saved a life. Who knows?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm a firm believer that singing together and creating community through that sort of experience does save lives. I've seen it happen.
Oh, it's amazing.
It's a privilege to be around it when it happens too.
Yeah, I found it a huge privilege to be part of that process. Before I sort of conclude and plug our event coming up, I wondered, now we'll get some information from you and we'll put it in what we have our podcast notes on our website, but is there anything you'd like to say about ongoing, like the community choir you've got? I'm not sure where it's up to with COVID at the moment, but if people hear this and they're not, they probably will be affected by adoption, but some may not. Is there things they can get involved with that you're doing? Yeah,
depending on their locality. Yes. But even now, because of COVID, we've actually got a lot of stuff online. So what happened with the shutdown was that all of our choirs stopped being able to meet back in just after the Lost and Found song was launched at last year's event. Everyone stopped being able to sing together in the same room, which was, very bad. It could have potentially been devastating, but what we did was we took our rehearsals onto Facebook Live and used the Facebook pages for each of our choirs to broadcast a weekly singing rehearsal. So each person would be singing at home on their own, but be singing with us because we would be singing for them. So they couldn't hear all the other voices, but they could hear their voice and our voices with them, and that was better than nothing. Yes. And then in the comments section, people could then interact with in the live situation particularly. So you could write a live comment about what we just sung, or "Oh, I'm having trouble hitting that high note," and somebody else would go, "Yeah, me too. Any tips, Kath?" And I'd then give some tips on how to sing your high notes. And, it was very interactive, even though it was just us in a room and them on their own at home.
And the interesting thing now is that, we're hopefully post-COVID, but who knows, it could, it can rear its ugly head at any moment. But what we decided to do was that as a result of doing the online stuff was when we went back to live with the choirs, we actually broadcast each of the rehearsals. So that means that anybody who wasn't able to make it or is not feeling well or whatever, they can access that online to be able to look at.
And they then didn't miss out on the rehearsals.
So in fact,
all of those rehearsals are still on our videos page on each of our Facebook pages. So you can go back and watch a whole year's worth of rehearsals if you want.
The other good thing about it is that anybody from anywhere in the world, if they know the time of our broadcast, which is a regular thing every week, they can actually just join in and be part of it. They won't be heard, but they can actually partake.
And they certainly can make comments in the comment section. Even after the live is finished, you can still comment.
It's always nice to find somebody from Holland.
Yeah, we've had people overseas joining in,
England,
so it'll be morning for them and it'll be afternoon or early evening for us, and we'd be saying, "Hello to you in Holland, hello in the UK, good morning, guten Morgen."
Insomniacs in Alaska,
Yes. What are you still doing up Alaska?
But it's just, in
funny.
a sense, it's now, it's enabled us to have a global community.
Yes.
And
Absolutely.
people can join in. To participate in the choirs, normally you have to pay a fee, but the online thing, we just sort of do it because it helps everybody who is in the choir and maybe can't be there, or even just wants to reference it to rehearse part way through the week.
I've had people who come to a rehearsal in person, because we did start back in-person rehearsals sort of September, October time. They'd come to the rehearsal and then they'd go home and they'd listen to it again and practice.
Do it again.
Yeah.
So it's there as a resource, and we're just happy to. It's such a nice thing to have somebody come up in the comments saying, I'm watching from Paris or something like that. It's just fantastic.
So people around the world are really welcome to engage with our choir work that way.
Yeah.
And there might be some more projects that we do with Jigsaw that will be possible to have a more global reach, perhaps.
Exactly.
So there's planning afoot.
Yeah. Well, at least
ideas are happening.
Yes,
COVID has certainly been a challenge, but it's enabled us to think in a broader concept about how to put over what we do, and it really has broadened the scope of the horizon. Now is as wide as the world.
It's been extraordinary.
I completely agree. It's sort of the same with our podcast, and aside from overseas, regional Queensland, regional Australia,
absolutely.
Not everyone lives in cities.
Exactly, and that can be very isolating.
Hugely.
So we need to look at ways to reduce isolation, and all of this online stuff is actually fantastic.
As you say, the COVID blessings.
Yeah, there are many gifts.
Every downside has an upside.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to let everyone know that our anniversary event this year, for the 8th anniversary of the federal government's apology for forced adoption practices, again, circumstances permitting, will be on Sunday the 21st of March 2021 in the morning. If you would like to attend, obviously it's going to be in Brisbane, so if you're local, check out our podcast notes on our website for some more information, or at the end of the episode you'll hear the phone numbers for Jigsaw and the Forced Adoption Support Service, so you can give us a call. There'll also be some further information about Kath and Jay in the podcast notes. And look, it's just been wonderful to have this discussion with you two today. We will listen at the end of the episode. We will play the song. Everyone's heard us talking about it, so they can have a listen. Before we do that, we're going to also hear from Vivian and Joyce, who were two of the participants in the workshops involved in the songwriting and in the performance. So we're going to hear their perspectives. They're two mothers who have lost children to adoption. And so I'd just like to say thank you both for now.
My great pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for having us. It's been lovely to talk about it.
Yes, it has. Thanks.
My name is Joyce Westerman, and I lost a child to adoption in 1970. I want to say thank you for inviting me to tell you a little bit about the experiences of the group participants in the songwriting workshops that we attended at Jigsaw late in 2009 and early 2020. And I hope when speaking on behalf of the others in the group, I can express what we all felt at these workshops. I feel privileged to tell you about the songwriting workshops that I attended, along with a small group of first mothers, adopted people, and Kathy and Jay, our facilitators. What an interesting way to express what we felt about our experiences of adoption and have what we felt acknowledged. I think I speak for all the group participants that first workshop late last year, the year 2019, when I say what an emotional experience it was to be able to tell Kathy and Jay openly how we felt about adoption, even though all our experiences were different. The group represented different ages and different stages on the adoption journey. A few of us shed tears when we spoke about various aspects of our personal experience of adoption. And it was great that everyone had a chance to voice their ideas to be expressed in our song. Jay and Kathy were very respectful and were genuinely interested in our input. When we first heard the song in the second workshop, again we all felt quite emotional. We felt that Jade captured in the rich imagery of a ship upon the ocean the meaning of what we had told him about adoption. Although it's been many years since my daughter and I met, hearing the words expressed this way really triggered memories and the emotions of our early relationship, and I suspect that others had similar reactions. Then Kathy got us singing along. Originally we'd hoped to form a choir, but our numbers were too small. However, one group member suggested we could sing the chorus, which Kathy embraced enthusiastically. Her enthusiasm carried us along as we joined her and Jay in the singing. I remember the way the energy in the room lifted to a positive high as we sang the chorus for the first time, and that energy continued throughout the rehearsals. Jay and Kathy discussed the lyrics with us, and after much discussion in the group, we eventually made some small changes in the words. Someone came up with some changes in the final choruses which strengthened the meaning even more. I think all the group members found the words of the song most meaningful. I thoroughly enjoyed the group experience and really appreciated the opportunity to be part of the consultation that allowed this song to be written. And singing the chorus was exhilarating. I hope as you hear the song written by Jay and Kathy that you will also be moved by the words that expressed our feelings so appropriately. Along with all the group members, I hope we'll all hear a lot more of our song. Thank you sincerely, Kathy and Jay.
Hello, my name is Vivian, and I lost my baby girl to adoption in 1980. My daughter found me in 1998. Like Joyce, I would like to thank the Forced Adoption Support Services and the Committee of Stakeholders for organising the unique songwriting event and for inviting me to speak of my experience participating in this project. I have to tell you, I was sceptical on the day. Number one, my thoughts were, why do we need to write a song? This idea seemed a little silly, outside the box you might say. This is exactly why I decided to go along and check it out. I sat with a couple of first mothers and a few adoptees. We were introduced to the amazing Jay and Kath and started to share with them our journeys. Jay and Kath immediately had a presence that made me feel warm and safe. They shared how they had written a song for another group and how the song empowered them when they sang it. I sat thinking, okay, maybe this might work. Maybe this is a way we can continue our voice for those touched by adoption. As we shared our stories, Jay and Kath dissected what we shared to create our song, Lost and Found. For the families that have not found their loved ones, know that when you reach out to other mothers and other adoptees, you have found a friend that gets you and supports you, even if you are still living in silence. Together we can be strong. Together we have a voice. I hope you enjoy the song. Thanks to everyone for making this happen.
Small ship tossed on an ocean of doubt and confusion, heartache and fear, hoping for landfall, but the winds of deception are blowing me sideways and I cannot steer. Lost and found, sad, lonely sailor, I've searched forever.
I try to be brave and I try to be strong.
But love is complicated and the landscape's uncertain, when nobody wins and so much can go wrong. Lost and found, I am lost and found. I am lost and found, hoping the government's sorry for all I've been through. Still the truth only surfaces slowly. Too many years have been stolen away, so how will you come to know me? In dreams I have anchored, and we are together, holding each other on some friendly shore. All is forgiven, no one forgotten, and love has a voice that is silenced no more. Lost and found, I'll keep searching. Lost and found, I'll keep asking. Lost and found, hoping I am lost and found. I'll keep searching. Lost and found, I'll keep speaking. Lost and found, hoping I'll keep searching. I'll keep asking. I'll keep speaking.
Thanks for listening to the Adopt Perspective podcast. If you'd like to find out more, go to the podcast page on www.jigsawqueensland.com and you'll find a wealth of information and resources on the website. If you reside in Queensland, you can reach Jigsaw Queensland's Forced Adoption Support Service on toll-free 1800 210313, or you can call Jigsaw on 07 33 58 6666. If you live in another state of Australia, you can still call the Forced Adoption Support Service number and your call will be answered by the Forced Adoption Support Service in the state that you're calling from. In every other state, Relationships Australia operates this service. A big thank you to Matt Sparrow for composing and recording our original theme music. Until next time, I'm Jo Sparrow saying farewell from Adopt Perspective, a podcast for anyone affected by adoption.